Welcome, guys, to today's episode of the Brand Pantry. We've got one of my favorite people on the call. I do chat to her a lot. Welcome, Lorin. How you doing?
Thank you, Dutch. It's good to know I'm one of your favorite people because you do give me a lot of trouble at work.
Yeah, no, it comes with the job.
I'd
Yeah,
like to see how you treat the people you don't like.
cool. Just a quick intro. I did a bit of research. You are a purposeful driven, procrastinator, personal branding advocate with passion for learning, leading, and building impactful relationships. Is that I think I got it spot on, right?
I think you got it. Like you say, sort of personal branding is really the thing I love the most. And maybe my mom knew that from the start by spelling my name a little bit differently. I haven't met another Lauren spelled this way. So I've always been very sure of myself, strong self-esteem, and like unapologetically me. I show up in I've had various careers, various roles, but I've always been me.
Yeah, and I can tell. So amazing stuff. So I think let's quickly get into see what's happening this week in the kitchen. So I think the first story that we just wanted to dive into is that Lamborghini's quarterly revenue went up to 29.6% as hybrid models boost deliveries. The interesting thing about this is that the car maker also delivered over 2,900 plus cars in the first quarter for 2025. So I do see this as a major win, specifically as one of the luxury and sport car manufacturers that went hybrid. The SUV model helped a lot, specifically in America and so forth, but that helped a ton. But I think the appetite, Lauren, and also with your experience within the car market, is that it did sort of shift, right? People are more embracing they are embracing hybrid models and more like future tech cars. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. And, as we know, the rich are getting richer. Um, the luxury items, and in that category and space, there doesn't seem to be any downward movement, if you can get it right. And I think the SUV space obviously is where cars are dominating. Like you say, I was involved in another car's launch of hybrid and electric. Sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't quite get it. I think Lamborghini, probably because of the performance of the car, is still at the heart of the hybrid or the electric vehicles. Lamborghini is such a like part of pop culture. It just appears everywhere in music videos and commercials and stuff. So yeah, I'm not surprised, but I did also look into it, and I thought, obviously luxury brands have got to be careful with getting too like it's available too freely, because then that takes that sort of shiny appeal away for people. But I think maybe they're mitigating that with their limited editions that they bring out. So there's still exclusivity within um, the luxury market.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting that they are breaking records with sales.
Yeah. No, and doing well. And yeah, just in terms of this, they're in next to Ferrari and all the other Maserati. There's a few other sort of Italian brands as well. I feel like they are doing well and embracing it. The Germans Porsche went SUV before them, but I think that hybrid sort of introducing that real early on and changing for the market is a great call in there, and it looks like it paid off.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a little tricky for us to imagine in South Africa because we're not quite there yet. But um, I was actually in Clarence past weekend, and my friend was wanting to park, and she's like, "Oh, there's two parkings right outside the hotel."
Yeah.
And every other bay is taken up, but of course those were for electric vehicles, so they were empty and available. But the technology will come to South Africa and be more freely available and adopted. I think that's the way we're all
Yeah.
moving.
Next story that popped up on my radar was that Skechers is to be acquired in a deal worth 9 billion by Brazilian private equity firm 3G Capital. Interesting move. I'll let you go first on this one.
Well, as you know, I am a Skechers fan with my Dr. Seuss shoes. So I think I think the world, I mean, has gone mad. We don't need to state the obvious, and it's so tricky to navigate um, tariffs and change. You know, this sort of war with exports, import duties, and where things are made. So I think breaking records with a $9 billion deal is worth it to move to Brazil.
Yeah, it's also interesting that I read that they're the third largest shoe brand, and if their value is at 9 billion, the likes of Adidas and Nike, I can't imagine where that's sitting at. But what for me, from a brand perspective, that could, like, I wouldn't say diminish, but I feel like it's a very thin line that they're walking on, is that how American in terms of like Skechers is so American. From the perception of the shoe, the origin, the way it's made, but more importantly, like just the vibe and the culture around it. Having it owned, from a Brazilian equity firm, the involvement and how much are they going to involve in their process, and is that going to change the perception? Like you said, you bought a Dr. Seuss pair, but like it was like the packaging and all of that. Did you feel like you were buying like into the heritage of Skechers, and hopefully that does stay around?
I mean, a lot of mergers, you're not sure which side is going to be the dominant side, you know, the original company or the buying company. But I mean, I think they've got a formula that works. So it would be silly to change it. And I think from a consumer point of view, it doesn't really matter who owns it unless it's someone very antagonizing. So they still building their brand on, you know, like Lamborghini, these limited editions, like the Dr. Seuss, different characters and stuff. I think they will still do that, and it will appeal to the markets that they currently have. They may just now have more equity to into research, development, maybe innovations into the product line.
Yeah, your pair, are they comfy though?
They're so comfortable.
Are they?
So comfortable. I'm not used to wearing such high sneakers, so they're quite high, the heel and the sole, but they it is like walking on cushions, like Dr.
Okay,
Seuss
nice.
cartoon cushions.
Cool. I feel like everyone that wears Skechers does have a Swatch watch as well. I feel like those two to go together pretty well.
I used to have a Swatch. I haven't kept up with the Swatch.
There we go. So yeah, so done with the news for this week. So Lauren, of course, we're getting into our main section. So we just want to like find out what you've been cooking throughout your career and your whole journey into the creative space. And yeah,
Good. So I've always been a crazy creative. I've given my mom a lot of grey hairs and my teachers and the like, but I explain myself as a rebel with a cause. So I'm not antagonizing for the sake of being it, but I do challenge the status quo. I do swim upstream. So sometimes that can cause friction, although, as my mom soon realized, if she told me not to do something, I was going to do it. So she quickly realized how best to manage me and get the best from me. Um, yeah, and I think instrumental when I was young, I was part of a small singing group, and the teacher, or our sort of, I don't know what you call it, our conductor or whatever, she was also an art teacher. So I started going to her for art lessons, and she sort of saw something in me. And I would go and spend like every afternoon in her shop outside of my normal art lessons. And she was like, you know, I see something in you. You really, you've got something, you know,
nice,
you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing at your age. So I think, and I've always known this: if people encourage you and support you, it feels like that skill and talent actually develops exponentially. You know, so she was instrumental in managing and identifying my creativity. I then obviously went into high school, and I took two subjects to matric, two art subjects to matric, And I had a terrible art teacher who actually like dulled my flame. She almost put it out, and thank God she retired. And a new young teacher started in my matric year, and she also just I think she just allowed me to express myself. And I ended up winning an award. And I was actually going to go and study graphic design. And she's like, no, you should study fine art. So that was a quick pivot to studying fine art. Um, what on earth I was going to do with that, I didn't know at that stage. But when I'd finished my studies, there was an arts and culture in those days was called teaching course. So I actually did the teaching course. So my first job was as a primary school art teacher. Um, I
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely loved. Like, I don't think I'd realized at that stage that teaching was my superpower. Um, so it was fortuitous that I landed up in that area, and I could never be a full-time artist. I'm not that talented, but I loved teaching, and I used the philosophy that I'd learned with my art teachers, that I really like empowered and encouraged my
Yeah.
students, and I
Yeah.
got such great results from them. I still bump into some kids. I actually bumped into one of my students last year, and she ran up to me and said, Miss Edgar. And I was like, to me,
Nice.
like, there's some kids you still remember.
Yeah.
And her and one of her friends, I used to give them craft classes as well. And she actually called Tinsy, the friend that I used to teach. She's in UK now, and we did a video call. So, like, those
Amazing.
kind of special moments from teaching crop up every now and then, which is amazing. And then absolutely love teaching.
Oh, just on that, it's so interesting. What were you painting and what were you painting on? You know, like what was your go-tos? Because I know for every creative, there's always like even if you doodle, there's always a certain thing you draw first before you get into the weeds of things.
So I actually I was doing some sculpture, and then I didn't think I could paint, but I landed up taking painting as a speciality and landed up loving painting. And my preference is acrylics, and I landed up for my final year doing these absolutely massive canvases, like they could just fit in a doorway. And I had
Whoa.
a small little red Matisse at the time, and I used to strap them to my roof and travel between home and college to paint on
Yeah.
them. So I actually really loved. I didn't realize that I would love painting so much. And now for about 15 years, I actually teach social painting classes. Um, I still get to flex that creative muscle every now. Yeah, I teach in a restaurant or in a pub, so it's very relaxed. And you're teaching like 30 to 50 people how to paint a painting. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
no one's taking it serious, right? Because you've got red
no, I
wine
mean, obviously
or
people
beer.
do take it a bit seriously, and they think, they've never painted before in their lives, but they think they're going to paint a masterpiece. Um, although actually in the end they do turn out pretty well, but I think most people are very critical of themselves.
Yeah.
And I
What
think
what
that's a
advice
common
would
thing that you find everywhere.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, what advice would you give to a person just getting into the painting world?
I think you've got to have a strong conviction and a sense of belief in yourself, because I didn't have great experiences at where I studied. A lot of lecturers putting you down, and you think this is not how you're adopting a creative spirit by doing what you're doing. So it actually can put you quite into quite a dark state if you're not strong in your convictions. I knew I wasn't going to be an artist full time, so it didn't affect me too much. But any criticism in a creative space seems to have more weight than in any other space. So I always hear the stories, like even from the kids I used to teach that moved on to different teachers, or now at the social painting classes, that they will say, I haven't painted since I was, 7, 8, 9, 13, because I had a teacher that told me I was really bad.
Yeah.
So it's terrible, but it's quite common. So then they put down any form of
Mm,
creativity and they stopped doing it because they were told they were bad at it. Um, and even if you're not going to become a full-time artist or anything like that, it's such an amazing skill and outlet to have. Outside of our work life, you want to have a creative outlet to think creatively, to problem solve, and also just to physically make things and do things out of our like 9 to 5 workspace. So it's quite sad, but I hear it very, very often.
yeah. And like I feel like more's accepted these days. I know there's fundamentals of like different eras and decades of painters that artists, those are the foundations always gravitate to. But I feel like from the 2000s, I remember there was this whole like new wave of paintings and styles. But I do feel like right now is actually the great time to actually from a creativity point of view, you could actually go pretty wide, not from the traditional, but like really craft your own space. And at the same time, people will accept it because they're a little bit more accepted of different styles and colors and textures and so forth.
Yeah, I think like I used to hear from my students, I don't know if you know Jackson Pollock. He had all the drips of paint. And they would be like, can't we just do this? This is so easy. But I used to try and explain to them that this artist has gone through the fundamentals of art and their skill and technique is so strong. They could paint anything that they wanted to paint, but they had to develop their own style of expression. So some of people get into the trap of like, oh, I can just put like a half glass of water on a shelf and like say it's art, or I can do a scribble and say that's a horse. But
Sounds like
be
me.
assured that those artists that are legit and authentic can do any style and technique and produce anything amazingly um, before they get to that point of actually creating like modern and contemporary work that sometimes feels like it doesn't have a lot of skill attached to it.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Sorry, I know I went a little bit back, but yeah, after college and after your teaching, what happened next?
So after teaching, unfortunately, I was one of those people that yeah, I kind of cried at the end of the month when I got my badge and when I got my salary. So
Yeah,
there was an opportunity to move into a marketing role at a mining company. So I moved across to that, and I think it's your personality and the skill set that you have that can be suited in many different roles. You don't have to be boxed into a certain profession. So my sort of um, open personality that I could talk to everyone. I was creative. I could do things. It served me well in the marketing space. So I loved that. And then I actually did a little bit of a pivot, and I went to work for Starfish, which is a national and global charity supporting orphaned and vulnerable children. So I was their brand and fundraising manager for my
love
sins.
that.
So I loved and I could do the branding part and all of that stuff well. I see they're still using some of the collateral I saw online the other day, but the fundraising part was a challenge. People think I can sell ice to an Eskimo, but it was quite challenging because we had to raise
Yeah,
millions of rands. Um, so that I loved that because it speaks to my heart and my passion for helping and empowering people. But I think the fundraising side of things was quite challenging. So yeah, I moved out of that, and then I took my first step into an agency, and I worked for the agency that we worked exclusively on Jaguar and Land Rover, and landed with an amazing team and amazing clients. So that was stunning.
nice,
And I was then looking for a new role and a new challenge. And that's how I landed up at Lucky Beard.
cool.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
but now on the project side of things. So I feel like I'm a bit of a weird unicorn that's creative and organized. So I'm flexing more of the organizational brain currently.
No, that's yeah, the mining is so interesting because like they vary, one plus one equals two, in terms of the way they explain things, and they need to be because it's that sector and that industry, is so different. So how did you find being creative within that space?
So I think it was less creative in that space and more in relationship building. So with the internal teams and all of the branches around South Africa and Africa, was the contact for all of those people if they needed marketing assets, material, or if they needed to talk to the product managers. So I think it was more in a relationship building. Obviously, we did, the normal stuff like newsletters and brochures and stuff, but yeah, very strict CI policy and, like you say, very like product focused of, pumps and cyclones and big milling machines for mines. So, um, yeah, very a bit hardcore, less creative. Although I did have a very creative boss at that stage, and she brought some creativity into the role, which was
Nice.
inspiring.
Nice. Yeah, and I do see it as a benefit for any designer to understand that side of business. You've got the creative side and that's the eye candy, but relationship building with any client is so key, to success. I read this other quote where it said 80% of your job is 80% of your job success is to be able to work with people, and 20% is skill and talent, which is so interesting. So I think just your from the art side into the mining sector, and from then on to Jaguar, which sounded amazing. At the product management side and all that learnings, you also have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to media and positioning. So was that all learned when you were working on those Jaguar and car brands?
So while I was working and all through these jobs, I actually studied and got my master's degree in education. But I'd already actually left teaching by then. But I wanted, when I start something, I do like to finish it. So I finished that degree, and then I studied brand leadership at Vega. So I think that really kind of cemented the knowledge I would have later in branding. I didn't use it at that stage, but it brought together a bit of the theory and the techniques and knowledge around branding and marketing that really I think that set me up for my future agency life.
No, but yeah, no, that sounds, yeah, it sounds like a journey. Sounds like a
It's
journey.
been a journey, and I
But
love
yeah,
that I haven't been in one lane. Each of my skills has moved me into a different lane because I do need to be creatively and intellectually stimulated. So each role feeds me in a different way. When I was studying at Vega, it was the first time I heard the word, like the words personal branding put together, and looked at it through the lens of like a corporate commercial brand. Um, so I already started to put like my own personal brand blueprint together at that stage. And I've kind of been working on it and refining it over the years. So I look at personal branding a little bit differently than like a portfolio necessarily. I'm looking at it through the lens of personal development. So I've
interesting.
done, yeah, sort of name every course, I've probably done it. Tony Robbins, Robin Banks, Mel Robbins, all of the books, all of the things. So I've been working so hard on I suppose it is my personal brand of how I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always on a course. I'm always learning something, and I really am more than happy to invest in myself. Whether it's financial management or it's soft skills or anything. I invest quite a lot in learning and growing in that space. So again, at this Clarence weekend, one of the ladies brought out an article. I hadn't forgotten because it's been on my mind. And 15 years ago, I gave a talk to her staff on personal branding. So this
Whoa.
is literally the newspaper cutting. That's how long ago it was. And I said to her, that's so interesting and like fortuitous because I've been wanting to, but it's been I've been procrastinating a little. but I want to do a personal branding workshop or course. So I know you got a little taste of it at Lucky Bird when I did the classroom, but I'm actually elaborating on that. And I'm really looking at it through the lens of like, if you really truly understand your unique position in the world, like what is your vision for your life? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your value systems? Um, we can put these together in a kind of like a CI, a brand blueprint that helps you show up consistently through your life. And also, it gives you, it's like a GPS that gives you some clarity on direction. I find a lot of people I talk to kind of, the analogy of just a ship drifting on water because it hasn't got a rudder.
Yeah.
So people are just, going to work, coming home, watching Netflix, and they don't have like any other further goals to improve themselves, to grow. So I'm really looking at it at this way that you can now truly and deeply understand yourself, work out what your vision is, what kind of person you are, and so that you can curate your brand and you can show up consistently wherever you appear. And, a lot of people obviously think about that now just for like social media, or if you have a personal website, or if you are selling products online, that's where the personal brand space is now. But for me, it's like having this clarity of who you are, what you stand for, and using that then to navigate where you want to be, so that you're always taking a step, closer and further into the direction of your vision for your life. So, I say that I am a connector and a catalyst, and I'm a curator and a creator. So
Yeah.
I want to learn and grow, but I also want to teach. So these are fundamental, but you need to know that about yourself in order
Mm.
to grow. So I'm, deeply passionate about personal branding in that space. So I'm currently working on a workshop for that.
Nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just,
No.
even doing this and doing this podcast, I've had to record myself today for other things for this course. It's like been a day of stepping out of my comfort zone. Even though I look wild and crazy, I do get nervous at times.
Yeah.
But these are like the personal growth moments that also that dictate where you're going to be. I often hear people saying to me, "Oh, Lorin, you live in such an amazing life. I wish I could have a life like yours." You can. You just have to do it. You have to get off the couch, set a goal, and do it. It doesn't come
Yeah.
easily to me. It might look like it, but I'm doing a lot of things that make me feel uncomfortable, and studying over weekends or evenings. So there's a lot of that stuff that people don't see about people, that like that, the glacier effect. you
Yeah.
you see that little
Yeah.
top peak, but all of this work that's going underneath is often unnoticed, and people just look at the tip and go, "Oh, I want to be like that person." But they don't realize that that person is doing a lot of work under the surface.
I also do love your lens through it because it's almost future proofing yourself. At the same time, with the rise of AI, and people doing research and finding out information, the great thing about having a journey and a plan attached to your personal brand is that you actually know where you're going to, but then you can actually see the stepping stones and what you need to do to make that journey a little bit smoother. But at the same time, also flexible in case there's any turns or any pivots that you need to make along the way. But I do love starting off with a person, seeing or discovering their brand, and then creating a game plan and a way forward in terms of enhancing that brand, but not only the way you perceived online, but also your personal growth, which I love. One of the things I do feel over nicknames, I saw somewhere that nicknames are given. You can't give yourself. It's earned. You earn a nickname. Someone actually gives it to you, people around you. But the great thing about nicknames, that's so so good with personal branding, similar to myself. People know me as Dutch. Started off as a nickname way back, but that is part of my personal brand, I would say. How do you feel about that?
Lol, I think is my most common nickname. But I think to your point of personal branding, like it's not all new stuff. It's actually thinking about the things you already own. Like when we talk about brands in the commercial sense, we're like, what equity do you already own in the market? Like what channels do you have? What are these things? And we won't necessarily, I mean, we all have social media pages, which is obviously one of the things, but like you could be famous for your hair. I mean, when I used to teach, my students used to, they couldn't wait to see every term because I'd have a new hair color and a new cut or style. So I was always
No,
known for
not you,
my
y'all.
style. I the wildness. I love tequila, so tequila is part of my brand. I own it. I'm not gonna shun or shy away from it. So if you've got a nickname or if you've got like your beard or your bald head, you actually own it and incorporate it in part of your brand because that is how you show up in the world. And if you don't own it and define your brand, obviously someone else will define it for you. So I'm very much around 100% understanding who you are, putting these sets of components, whatever they are, putting them into a document or a visual that helps you is like your North Star for your personal brand. And then, like you say, goals um, and points of growth in your life, as well as parts not parts, but systems in place to reflect because you need to
Nice,
reflect on your growth to
nice.
grow. So it is very much like a game plan, like you say. So it's a strategy first, and then your game
Yeah,
plan and how you execute it, and then coming back to reflect, like what's been your performance data, after a certain
yeah,
period. Um,
yeah,
so so yeah, and for me, it's just I resonate with people that are comfortable in their own skin, and I think you're comfortable in your own skin if you know yourself really well, and also if you are the same person at work, at home, socially, on the sports field. I don't want to come across a person that I don't know who you are on the sports field because that's not how I know you at work. Um, and I think that kind of clarity obviously comes with age, but also understanding and knowing yourself that deeply and understanding your weaknesses, knowing your strengths, and you've got this plan to grow and evolve that you then become this very consistent brand, and we talk about that in commercial brands like Nike, like the Springboks, Tesla. They've got these plans that every time they do an advert, we know it in our branding and advertising space, it must look like a Nike ad before you even see the logo. So this is like for us, like we must know it's Dutch or we must know it's Lorin before we necessarily see you or hear you. There's something that makes you feel comfortable in this person's space, that they are comfortable in their space.
yeah. No, I love that. Thanks for the deep dive, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm sure people will learn a lot too. But I think where you flipped it on its head for me personally is that personal brand. As a creative myself, I always see visually how do you put yourself out there. But I think what resonated with me in terms of what you said, y'all, is that it's more around how your own personal growth uh, that will improve your personal brand. So it's starting with yourself and then working on that, and that will automatically fall. It will build up snowball effect, and that will go into your personal brand, and people will see you in that way based on all the hard work that you've put in. So yeah,
Exactly.
amazing. Thanks for that, y'all. So yeah, our next section is our quick flambe before we get into our desserts. So these are going to be quick fire questions. Yeah, feel free to answer them in any way that you'd like, and even if you want to elaborate. So let's get into the first one. In 3 words, How would you describe your personal brand?
Live on purpose.
Yeah, live on purpose. So, okay, great, nice. I wanted to say on is like on was like weirdly placed in between purpose and live, but great, love it.
No, it's
Uh,
just talking to being conscious about your life.
Gotcha, perfect. Second one, mind mapping or lists. What's your creative jam?
Oh, it's a tough one. I used to teach study skills when I was a teacher. So mind mapping is all about study skills and visual association. So when I learned and studied everything, I did it that way. But now in my project management role, I'm like a super list taker and I get a lot of joy from crossing things off lists.
Yeah, no, we all do. I remember there was an app like way back that the purpose was that like as soon as you cross it off and then like it will have this cool little animation. But yeah, brings so much joy to us as well. The third one, what's your favorite way to learn something new?
My favorite way to learn something new is in person with someone. I do a lot of online courses now just because it's sort of easier and that's where we are. But I prefer to go to a class, if it's a craft class or cooking class or a course in person that I can actually engage with people.
Fourth, we've got a fourth one, solo hustle or team energy. What drives you?
Oh, I'm like one foot in each because, because
No,
I
that's
am an
cool.
only child.
Yeah,
I
oh,
am an
okay.
only
Yeah, yeah.
child, so the solar hustle is real, and I do put I won't say a lot of pressure, but I set goals for myself to improve and grow. But of course, with being a social person and I'm an extrovert, I love to be in teams and people as well. So yeah.
One foot in each. Perfect. Lastly, lastly, do you lead more with logic or with gut instinct?
Oh, Dutch. I'm not a one or the other. I'm like
Okay, cool. No,
I am a
feel free. Feel
super
free to
practical
talk.
and pragmatic, logical thinker,
Yeah.
but I also I forgot the question.
It's the logic side or gut. But when you feel that gut instinct, do you listen to it or do you like go with oh my brain's telling me this as well? So
No, I listen to my gut a lot. So sometimes you have like your head is saying something and your heart is saying something
yeah,
else.
yeah,
Heart being gut area. I think the your head wants you to be safe and like, write out the pros and
yeah.
cons. But I am a risk taker. So I
Nice.
usually go with my gut, take a lot of steps and courage. Like I say, to my mom's, added grey hairs, but
Yeah.
I've never regretted taking a risk or doing something crazy. And if it didn't work out, I mean, it obviously sucks, but I never regret taking that step because it opens a door to something else that you never knew existed.
Yeah. No, and one of the things that you do a lot, you spoke a little bit about clearance, but you hike a lot. So just a question, I'm just curious. So when you're on a hike and your gut tells you can go a little further, but your mind tells you that you need to take a break or you need a glass, like some water, what do you do?
Well, the thing is, you can delay and procrastinate as much as you want, but you got to get to the end. I'd rather I'd rather get up and go and get to the end
Go.
than like delay it and like hike for another 2 hours. I
Makes
might
sense.
complain and bitch along the way, but I'm gonna go and do it.
All good. All good. No, thanks for that, Al. Yeah, no. So we're done with the palate cleansers. We're going to go into our dessert. So with our dessert section, saucy means you actually love it, super hot, super cool. Sour is nah, it really doesn't work for you. It's really not gelling, and no one actually wants a sour dessert. And salty is that it's interesting, it's tasty, it's a little bit on a salty bit. So the way we have it is saucy, salty, and sour. So we're going to be looking at a few visuals this week and go through them. Also, the first one that we're going to go through is from Garmin. You said you're a hiker, so I thought let's bring in some. I think Garmin is one of the best in the world. That's what everyone tells me. That's where is it. So this campaign was around the launch of the Forerunner 55. I think this is salty, purely for the fact that I'm not the target market for Garmin. But at the same time, I do feel like they are doing great things from a technology point of view. I believe they're always ahead of the curve. They work closely with Strava, and everyone just sort of falls behind the pack and catches up later. So yeah, I'll go salty on this. But
Yeah, I'm one of those weird, strange hikers with no gear.
cool.
I don't even put the app on. I just find out at the end how many kilometers we've hiked. Um,
Okay.
but I like the ad because it feels probably unsalty because it's a bit disruptive, where it's in
Yeah.
the city and not where
Yeah.
you would think, like at in nature or climbing a mountain or something. So I like the pedestrian crossing with the buildings at the back. So I do like the juxtaposition of that.
Cool. Great. The second one we're going to go into is British Airways. They had this campaign called Windows a few years ago. Do you want to go first on this one? Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and I'm not sure if you've seen the latest Airlink ads
Mm.
here,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
the giraffe is inside the window. So that's got the viewpoint of, the plane is bringing you into this world, and the British Airways ad is like actually you looking from the outside in, which is
Yeah.
an interesting concept. And obviously their logo is so recognizable that cutting off the letters and just having it you could see. So I liked it, but I'm gonna go sour just because I've seen better with
So
Airlink. I prefer the Airlink viewpoint.
cool. Cool. I'll go saucy on it. I just feel like they take on that perspective. Firstly, is super cool and dynamic, and secondly, I do believe this probably happened. I know there's not a lot of sun in Britain, but I do believe
Yes.
if sunrise, sunset, to see that reflection on the plane, it looks like the sun's actually touching it. And what I do love is the faces of the models that they've got in there. The sun's reflecting on them too. So I do love billboards where they bring in the realist, the like nature and the reality of the world into the creative in some sort of way. So even if it's time of day or at night, I do love that. So I'll go saucy on that. But thanks for those, y'all. Uh, Thirdly, EWC. This is fresh off the press, new logo. So they've been cooking up. They never had a logo change for the last 14 years and sort of a new brand push. So I'll go first on this. I think this is saucy. I really do. I do feel like a lot of brands get it wrong with the great sort of evolution, and I feel like with PwC, I feel like it's such a important brand, and the sector that they're in is so powerful. You wouldn't want to get it wrong in any way, and you're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of businesses around the world, and the brand is huge. So I do feel like this is the right step. It's I also feel like the logo is so much more responsive. You can do so much with it, and it's just more clean. So yeah, I think this is super saucy.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. The old one just kind of feels like a layering of
Yeah.
blocks and patterns, and where they they sort of made a bit of a gradient. Um, but this sort of evolution towards these very simple, almost 2D flat um, logos is always contentious. Um, I think maybe it comes back to our conversation around like art and
Hmm.
creating a scribble on a piece of paper and saying it's something. And I think maybe a lot of people will think, I could have done that, PwC logo with those two orange blocks. But obviously, it takes quite a lot of insight and design into that. And sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't. And you take a lot of flack. Well, the designers and the brands take a lot of flack for it. Um, but I think, yeah, I don't know how often brands should be refreshing in terms of like logo and stuff, but It does seem like quite a lot of focus on something it is important, but not the end of the world to
Yeah.
evolve your logo. I don't think.
Yeah, cool. Uh, then we're moving on to next. So we've got this iconic piece from Heineken, Walking Fridge. I'm sure a lot of us have seen this commercial. This was everywhere, it played everywhere, and it was so good at the time. What's your take on it? Yeah,
Yeah, 100% saucy. Sometimes the brands just get it right, and you can watch ads over and over again. And I think that um, the positioning of the woman in the shoe
yeah,
closet,
glove.
and then the
Yeah,
guys screaming even louder for the walk-in beer fridge is epic, timeless. I think
yeah, yeah.
we should build that at our office.
That'll be cool. That'll be cool. Yeah, super saucy and me. I think you said it all, y'all. I think it's one of those ads where it's just timeless. I feel like they can fly this now. It will still be relevant, and it's just got this cool factor about it. So yeah, super saucy on that. After that, we're going into the world of Raid. We did this ad way back where they include and featured Spider-Man with his iconic red glove. So I wouldn't say it's Spider-Man, but as soon as you see a red glove with a spider pattern or web pattern on, you know it's Spider-Man. I came across this and I think this is super saucy. It is on the edge of it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, I just think it drives the message home so strong. And just seeing a bit of that, and that's the thing. It's like the logo isn't planted on it. They just put the can in the bottom right hand corners, which I think is so cool. So yeah, super saucy on my end as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think just it's not overtold. Just that hand, and you need to look a bit closely to see the webbing. Um, I think they just nailed it. Honestly, I love that. And I think, I mean, we know this, but it's so hard to get to the simpler the concept and the creator that lands something so beautifully. You can't beat that. You shouldn't have to have this whole preamble or context to actually get an ad to land. Just in one image, one word, like if you can get that right, I think, yeah, you're a genius.
No, I think that's spot on. And then lastly, we've got Absolute Heinz. So Heinz came up with this campaign a few weeks ago. Yeah, I'll let you go first because I've got a lot to say about it.
I think let me say salty and saucy, because I think it's super saucy and epic. And I like the saltiness because of the disruptive nature of it and how it plays on Absolute vodka. Yeah, I think it's so clever and so cool. I love the first ad the most. I think that one tells the story, and maybe the others they land, but they maybe were a bit forced. I think just the Heinz with the shadow of the Absolute is magnific.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think I have to match as well. Where I'm also torn a little bit saucy and salty, and the reason being, we in South Africa we know Nando's does this a lot, but I do have this feeling against a brand campaign that leeches off something else that happened. But at the same time, when it's done right and there's actually some background to it, then I love it. So, for example, I would have loved if Heinz actually did like a little pairing with Absolute Vodka, where it's like this sauce actually goes well with ABC and vodka. I feel like that would have been great. But at the same time, of course, leeching off the amazing work that Absolute Vodka has done over the years with creating this, the bottle so iconic, but actually hearing that silhouette and making it a brand mark over the years has landed pretty well, and people know that. So I do feel like it's saucy. I know Heinz is selling saucier, which is like, yeah. So I do feel like it's saucy, but salty in a sense that I feel like they are leveraging off the amazing work that Absolute has done previously. Not saying that it's wrong. It's more around, I feel like if you do that in your campaign, then it's just to be more substance to that decision being made. I feel like it lands a little bit better. That's my perspective, of course. but definitely eye catching. I do hear what you're saying in terms of the red, the first visual with the red and the silhouette and the shadow. I do feel like the others are also good. Feels a little AI to me, not a problem with that. I embrace it. But if they actually shot this or created this, that'll be that's also, yeah, hats off to them. So perfect. So
Yeah,
yeah,
just
that's yeah.
sorry, Dutch. I wanted to
No, no.
on that, brand partnerships. I I was listening to the radio the other day, and I think it was Maybelline. They did a
Yeah.
partnership with Nando's, which is also
Yeah.
such a left
Yeah.
meeting right, but it
Yeah.
was to promote this very long-lasting lipstick that you could
Yeah.
eat the
Yeah.
spicy chicken and the spicy sauce with, and your lipstick was still on.
Yeah. I
So
think where
very
they did a good job.
unexpected.
Yeah, I think where they did a good job with that, they actually show the product in action. So
Yes.
luckily for them, they do sell chicken. The lipstick that was on the model. So it just, yeah. Sometimes it just works beautifully, and it comes together. Which good example there, where it's not that, oh, they've done this previously, so let's attach our brand to that. So I feel like that's a great example on that, Lauren. So yeah, good. And just lastly, Lauren, so yeah, I think we're at the end, so desserts are all done. So we would like to get you in at the end is more of like a quick meal prep, and it's more just a last sort of question before we go into where we can follow you and where we can get in touch with you. But it's just one question: that what are the key ingredients that make a successful brand or business in the advertising industry?
Sure. I think maybe being conscious about everything and consistency. I think though, obviously there's a million other elements
Yeah,
that
yeah,
come
sure.
into, but maybe they all sort of feed into these as umbrellas, being, conscious about being consistent so that there is that level of recognition from your consumers.
Yeah. No, totally agree with that. And then lastly, Al, before we get into the goodbyes, but yeah, let us know where we can get in touch with you, follow you, anything that you've been up to that you'd want to maybe tell people about.
So yeah, you can follow me. I'm so old. I'm still on Facebook,
All
Instagram,
good,
and
all good with that.
LinkedIn. All at Lorin Edgar, spelt in the special Lorin way.
Cool. Yeah, I'll drop your links below, the ones that you do, of course, want. So I'll drop them below. Lauren, was an absolute pleasure having you on. Learned so much. I feel like, yeah, personal branding is the way forward, and I only think it's going to grow from there. But I also love your perspective on it. Your journey is being great. Definitely want to see one of your art pieces. If you'd like, if you want to send me any of any pictures or anything that you've done, I'll pop them in the chat, and we can have them displayed here. So yeah, it was an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Amal.
Thanks, Dutch. And when I was traveling a few weeks ago, I meant to buy it, but I forgot to. Um, but there was an Angry Beard chili sauce that I wanted to give to you for
To me
your brand
specifically,
pantry podcast,
nice.
and just for the spiciness that you gave me at work.
Uh, no, no, no. I told you where that comes from. So yeah, it's no, no. That's where we work. That's where we get the creativity flowing. So I think it's great. It's always great working and bouncing off ideas with you. Good stuff. Cool. So yeah, no, thanks, guys. So yeah, no, thanks so much. Al was good. And yeah, until the next time, guys. Yeah, cheers.